what is reading the Bible for a Black African woman like?
Okay.
Because it's not going to be the same for it's not going to be the same with a white man or a white woman, because the struggles are different considering where we are in the where we are because of history. So that's what I focused. In academia, we are exposed to a lot of old white men, Western colonized ways of reading, and we may not even be aware of the lenses that we read the Bible from. And she says, she speaks from a womanist, so a womanist perspective for black African women. What does I struggled with belonging, especially in a predominantly white environment, coming from a mixed school, coming from a country that is predominantly black. It was a shock for me. It was a culture shock for me, and you don't even realize it because it's just at your back of your mind. Unconsciously, you just feel like you don't belong.
Greetings and welcome at EduKnowledge Exchange Podcast. We bring you in studio today a University of Stellenbosch product, a master's candidate in theology, Rutende Gora. We appreciate your presence at EduKnowledge Exchange Podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. This is EduKnowledge Exchange Podcast. We believe in individuals' power of exercising education and making it fashionable. And as an individual in that journey of academic where education is exercised, we believe that you have an aspirations and that you inspire us. So we want to hear from you as to what inspired your academic journey.
Sure.
We want to know what inspired your career development for you to specialize in theology.
Yeah. I think with any theology student, you have to have a calling because it's definitely not an easy career choice to take, but from what I've heard, it's usually worthwhile in the end. For me personally, I just had a strong conviction, and I basically grew up and lived in the church, basically. And my dad was also a pastor and someone who inspired me, and the people around me always motivated me in this direction. So it was started from an inkling that died down a bit, and then I was like, you know what, why not? That's basically it. A very strong conviction and a strong-willed 18-year-old girl. Yeah.
So as a master's candidate, beginning from the inception of your academic journey as an undergraduate to your level of education currently, what are the common challenges which you encountered and which continued to inspire you to apply maximum discipline within persuasion of your academic career?
To be honest with you, the first actual struggle was actually wondering if this was the right choice. That was the worst part. that was actually the worst part, because your first question was what inspired me. I had this very strong conviction. Many could have done anything else. But then now I'm in a position where I'm questioning everything. Like, nothing makes sense. I'm lost. I'm confused. Like, what is going on? And a lot of it was because, so my first year was 2020. We know what happened in 2020.
That was your first year?
That was my first year.
And
that was the COVID, where COVID decided to visit us. And so in March, we were told that we were going to just go for a recess and come back. And that recess prolonged. And now luckily I was with the one family in KwaZulu-Natal. I couldn't go home. And in a sense I was very isolated. we're all isolated, and now I'm there learning by myself.
Okay.
And all of a sudden I'm not really connecting with what I'm learning, and I'm confused. So that was the biggest struggle.
Yes.
And what motivated me was the people around me who said that I should continue and that things would get better.
Yeah.
And also my genuine interest. I think I still had that interest
Okay.
to learn. So yes.
For quiet clarification,
Yes.
you mentioned that your commencement at a higher level of education with specialization in theology was in 2020.
Yes.
For clarification and for our audience to understand that now you are a master's candidate,
Yeah.
and for someone who is interested in taking path to the same study field as yours, how do you then get to explain the process of learning that for this particular years, this is where you will have completed your bachelor's degree and perhaps honors, and then at this stage, that's when you get to qualify for master's degree. But can you please, from your experience based?
Okay, so from my experience, I did a BDiv, so it's a Bachelor of Divinity. So it's
Okay.
more specialized for people who want to train and be pastors or ministers in their congregation.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have different bachelors in theology, which is more general. It's for people who are genuinely just interested, or you're looking for a bridging course
Yes.
into another degree, whether it could be law, environmental studies, whatever
Okay.
you may want. As well as there's a bachelor's youth program where you can work with youth.
Okay.
So then the one I did, the bachelor's
Okay.
in divinity, it's a 4-year honors degree, unlike the others, which are 3 years.
3
years. So for me, it's just 4 years. You do your honors, and then once I did my honors, then I qualified to go do my masters. So it was simpler.
Okay.
If you do a 3-year, then you have to do an honors program as well, and then you do your masters.
Okay. So part of what you have mentioned as something that you mentioned, that the challenges which you encountered in your academic space were somehow also motivated by the burning fire which you had in yourself, that you can't just come out of nowhere and get to quit this. As part of that, those challenges, and I believe that many individuals may encounter those, beside the spirit of enthusiasm which you possessed yourself, how can you then be in a position to sit with me and say, if you ever get to encounter this challenge, this is how you may strategize to be out of this and be in this particular way to commit yourself academically?
Sure. Oh, wow. How did I... to be honest, I think with something like this, if you really are struggling with it, and you feel like it's not for you,
Okay.
then if it's still early on, there's no shame in quitting.
Okay.
I'm going to put it out there. But if you still really feel... But of course, you quit with a plan, like, okay, you're going to go into something else.
Okay.
But if you really, really want to carry on, for me, a lot of it was because I also had to think of like my family. My
Yes.
family was my biggest inspiration, my biggest encouragement. And I'd already come so far, and I really wanted to pull through and finish. And I think also learning about yourself, learning about how you study, how you work, and what study methods actually work for you. So for example, with a theology degree, it's a
Okay.
lot of content. It's a lot of content based. It's not like maths and physics
Yes,
where
yeah.
you're just
You need
you
memorization.
practice and memorization. In theology, yes, it is a lot of memorization
Okay.
with dates and stuff,
Okay.
but there's a lot of thinking that goes into it, and there's a lot of readings that you can't read everything. So that's one thing. Like, you can't read everything. You need to be exposed to other people who are studying and listening to what they're saying. So like having before tests, even coming together as a group of friends and saying, okay, what did you learn? Pick up. Those really, really helped. Those really, really helped me. Because in first year, I didn't have that because I was in COVID by myself. And I noticed that I did struggle with that. But with second year, going and coming back and being around my friends, studying with my friends, that personally helped me. And with theology, it is a team sport. It really is a team sport because you can really easily get stuck in your head because not only are you doing academics, you're also dealing with your faith. And that in itself is a struggle.
Okay. Before we dive into team part, you said it's a teamwork, right? For clarification that we then get to dive into discussion, which you just mentioned recently, you clarified that theology is a broad department of study. And someone must be asking, what are you majoring in?
What am I majoring in?
Yes.
So in my undergrad, I majored in Old Testament.
Okay.
So I focused on an Old Testament scholar named Madipoane Masenya. And she basically... what's the word? She composed or she theorized a theory on studying the Bible. So one big word I can teach you is hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is a way of understanding, of studying, like how you read the Bible, how you understand the Bible. So that's your hermeneutical lens. So in academia, we are exposed to a lot of old white men, Western colonized ways of reading, and we may not even be aware of the lenses that we read the Bible from. And she says, she speaks from a womanist, so a womanist perspective for black African women. What does what is reading the Bible for a black African woman like? Because it's not going to be the same for it's not going to be the same with a white man or a white woman, because the struggles are different considering where we are in the where we are because of history. So that's what I focused, an attempt to say, okay, let's bring more voices to the table. Not to say that any voice should be excluded, but that we should all have a round table and speak about stuff like this. Yes.
You are saying that you then get to discuss and get perspectives, even those viewed from feminist ideas. And then in a Bible, I don't know.
Yeah.
But broadly, is feminism advocated? And as someone who is specializing in theology, what is your stance on that equality which you are being taught to interpret and analyze scripture in different format?
Well, in theology, we have a lot of hermeneutical lenses. So we have something as like black theology, feminist theology, what's it called? Queer theology as well. Yes. So there's a lot of perspectives. And I'd actually like to add that the generic is the white man. That becomes the norm. So then, of course, when we hear these other ones, we are like, wait, what? How can we have those when we have this one that we perceive as objective? That's where we have a problem, when we perceive this one way of thinking as the norm. So your question, does the Bible advocate for feminism? Does Jesus speak to women? Does Jesus use women as parables? Yes.
No.
Yes. Well, there is one.
Not to dwell in.
But yeah, they are verses and stuff that advocate for equality.
I see. Is that what? So I just want us to dive into that. You mentioned that it's a it's conceptualized in the sense that it is too demandful that you ought to then get to invest more of your time to familiarize yourself with concept within theology. For yourself, how do you then get to manage those tasks as part of your experiences? How do you manage your tasks? That it is broad, you need time investment.
Which tasks? Sorry.
You mentioned that theology itself is broad. It's not like numbers, it's a theory. It's something which needs you to read, critically analyze it. How do you do those tasks yourself to ensure that within a space of this period of time, my tasks will have been managed sufficiently that time still be on my side beside the amount of work which you have to complete?
Okay. So usually on a good day, I do eat my frogs first.
Okay.
And I do my assignments first. But with most students, we do struggle to read and we procrastinate.
Okay.
So there's a method that I use. I use the Pomodoro method. I don't know if you've ever heard the Pomodoro method.
Tell me about it.
So it's a simple method.
Okay.
It's because I've learned that I work best under pressure.
Okay.
It's also time gapping. I think that's what it's called. Time gapping. Time blocking. It's called time blocking. Yes.
Okay.
So you block a period of time.
Okay.
25 minutes, and you say, okay, this is what I need to do. I'm going to do my task in 25 minutes. And there's an online website called, if you just search Pomodoro Timer, it's there. And it's, if you click on it,
okay,
it times down, and then there's a 5-minute break, and then once you do 4 sections of that, then you can take a longer break. So that's what I usually use, and I find that super helpful, especially when I procrastinate. And then being able to do your assignments early on is a must. Like, even if it's just reading slowly, getting your research or your bibliography ready. That's what I do best on a good day.
Okay.
On a good day. And then that helps, and then I write it out.
Okay. Theology, according to you, is likely a work or team-based work. How do you further demonstrate to us for understanding?
Okay, thanks for asking that. So, coming into university, I had senior people before me who had been doing theology, and they really guided me. Whenever I had questions, I could go to them. If I wasn't sure about how a document was to be formatted, they were there for me. Certain things, certain insights that you get from other students. I think it's like in high school where we studied, when you study for biology, you do past papers. Okay. So in a sense, you study what the past students have done.
Oh, yes.
So that's why I would say it's partly teamwork. And also the ability to be able to study with the people around you, and also being connected to who knows what's going on, knows what's going on, and making sure you're in the know. When are the tests? Because some days you have a slip up and you don't know when the test is, or you write it on the wrong day on your calendar. Yes. So I think, definitely being a team sport. Considering also how in high school, for me personally, it was some sort of like individualistic race or sport. This thing of trying to be the best student, trying to be the best. Yeah, like you want to work on your own. Trying to be better than everyone. Yeah, you want to work on your own. You want to prove to yourself. And university does have that aspect, but you also have this thing of you need to be in community. Okay. Isolation. Yes. The sticks work better when they are tied together.
Yeah. You know, that's so inspiring. But to an individual, introverted individual, how do you get them out of that position that they then get to socialize for academic assistance purposes?
An introverted, ooh, wow, that's very difficult considering I'm more extroverted or ambivert. I'm more in the middle. Well, one, the will to want to learn.
Okay.
If you have the will to want to learn, the universe will provide you with people who are also introverted, and then you have a group of introverts studying together.
Yes.
Ideally, yeah.
Okay. So in theology, how do you bring knowledge into practice?
Knowledge into practice.
Yes. The knowledge gained in classroom. How do you practice it? How do you put it into practice? I want to know that we want to know that in theology you are learning,
Yes.
you are being imparted knowledge about, you said that now you are specializing in New Testament.
Yes.
So having that knowledge yourself, and someone wants to be informed as to, okay, I've got the knowledge, I know this is something that I can put into practice and preach to anyone. But in the study field of your department, how do you put that knowledge which you have gained in classroom into practice? How do you then get to organize yourself and say, we are going out to do this and this and this based on what we have gained in classroom?
Okay. So to also clarify, I mentioned that I did major in Old Testament.
Yes.
So then you're now saying New Testament in my master's year.
Yes.
So in my master's thesis, it was mostly about considering certain practices that are done in the Bible. Like, for example, I focused on wearing head wrap, and what does that mean for our context today. So a lot of it was to say that some practices that exist are very like culturally based, and how do we apply it in our society. So to say certain biblical principles, how can we then go into the world with them? So for example, with head wearing, a lot of it is about modesty, a lot of it is about a lot of it is mostly about modesty. So then how do you apply modesty into the real world? Of course, that's a simplified version. If I go into my thesis, which also spoke about the fact that the ideals about it are not necessarily focused on women, which is problematic because it's like women should be pleasing and modest because men are like this, which is not the situation, especially in a context in South Africa where thought like that is problematic, where women are victimized or considered to be the problem, when in actual fact we should be focusing on the men, which the Bible unfortunately doesn't usually discipline the men. So I feel like something like that can really be taken into practice, into dealing with the issues like gender-based violence, issues like femicide, and talking about these things and addressing our paradigms. Because a lot of how society functions is how we think. And I think as much as theology does not feel like something we do a lot, we really do. People are a product of how you think. What you believe is how you act out. So that is how you can take theology practically into the world. By stimulating and exposing yourself and reflecting on how you think.
Yes. Okay, you are saying that in theology you get to be exposed to different aspects of academia. For yourself as an individual, what is the motive behind you pursuing theology?
So initially it was very personal. I think as a Christian, and personally for me, I think when I experienced the grace and the overwhelming love that I got from God and people around me. I just felt the need to share it, and I thought theology was the best way to do that. And also, I also wanted to learn more about God. I was very interested that time.
That's so inspirational, motivating, and encourages. As part of your university experience, and now as a final year student, as a master's candidate, to reflect, what do you think you do take away that you have gained within the space of higher education, which you will forever cherish?
I think when I look back at the person I was coming into first year, is very different. I would say naive, of course. I wasn't as exposed to the world, and also as a young person who's mostly been under the shelter or the care of my parents, the responsibility of taking care of yourself in the real world is not an easy feat.
Yes.
Living by myself, feeling homesick, making friends, making connections, losing connections, losing friends, and I think I really learned a lot. And also in my degree itself, I've been exposed to so much that I'm not gonna lie, it was very difficult, very faith shaking, very hard to take in certain things, certain truths, certain ideals, and for the longest time I was stuck in my head, struggling with it, battling with it. Now I can definitely say I feel I'm at a better place where I'm constructing my own thoughts, my own understandings of what I believe, and we're always consistently evolving. So I think that's what I've taken.
As a socially active individual, particularly on social media,
Yes.
and where you have mentioned recently that you, in theology, it's work-based team. As part of social media individual who is actively there, participating, how do you think that social media inspire those introverted individuals in building a relationship with people whom they may assist one another through or for academic purposes? How do you think the impact of social media, which you utilize for various purposes, how do you think it get them to that point?
So one thing about social media is that it comes to you, so it's literally on your phone.
Yes.
And I can imagine for someone who's introverted, who doesn't want to go into spaces, that creates already a comfortable space, a space that you can just, at the tap of a finger, you're exposed to so much information. And in this generation, there's just so much information, which can be overwhelming, but also it's good to have that that ability, what's the word? Yes. That ability to be able to have access to information. So I think that's the good thing, especially where we have influencers who also give lots of study techniques and stuff. It's very inspiring because it also inspired me. And for me, with my use of social media, concerning education, was that's where I learned about the Pomodoro. That's how I learned about different techniques of how to study, and that's where a lot of people go when they need help. And it's nice to have something that you can pause and play, repeat, play speed, change to your settings in order to for it to suit you. I think I answered the question. I'm not sure.
This is EduKnowledge Exchange podcast. We continue to dive in with Rutende Gora, who continues to share with us the experience and the challenges which she encountered in her academic journey since commencement, and currently as a master's candidate who is near completion. We encourage that you subscribe to our channel, like, share, subscribe as well. As we continue, Rutendo, you advocated, or you mentioned, that individuals should be within a space of socializing for strictly academic purposes, but superstitiously within your own perspective. How do you think it has assisted you that if you were to give that advice concretely, that they take from your own perspective, how do you think it has shaped your academic life? How do you think socializing shaped your academic?
Oh, socializing on social media.
Yes.
So, of course, there's bad and there's good to being on TikTok,
Yes.
Instagram. A lot of your time goes. So, I would say it is a matter of discipline a lot, because you
Yes.
can scroll for too long. But as I've mentioned, there's a lot of resources that are also there. So if your algorithm is on study material, then that helps. And if once in a while there's a TikTok that says go study, then you go study. Or not, or you just scroll past. But usually they make you feel guilty and you go study.
Yes.
But for me personally, I definitely, like I mentioned, I've found a lot of techniques on how to study, how to be a better student, and that has helped me. And the reason I started my focusing on making student-friendly content was because I am a student, and there is nothing more than going to a space or an environment that you are completely unaware of, and having these misconceptions that are hindering you from going to a place. So for me, I wanted someone to see this and be like, okay, this is a different perspective.
Okay.
So I don't exactly do study techniques because I believe there's a lot already that's out there. I guess I could, but I think what I found valuable was exploring the environment that I was in.
Yes.
I have the privilege of living in Stellenbosch, which is quite beautiful, and I wanted to share that with people. And also concerning the res reviews that I do, this was for me a way to provide a better, how can I put it? To provide somebody who's considering coming to Stellenbosch a better idea of where you're going to live, where you're going to stay when it's in res. And the funny thing is, I don't stay in res, and it was almost like a guilty pleasure for me to go explore the reses and see how beautiful, how they are, and how the other students are living. So that was for me a way of giving back to my community and also taking in Stellenbosch before I leave. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Now, looking or envisioning the future, transitioning from higher education to working environment.
Yes.
From the experience encountered or from the experience gained within the space of academia, how do you project yourself within the working environment practically from the knowledge which you gained during your learning days?
So right now I'm still preparing to go into the working space.
Okay.
And I remember a few months ago I was actually very, very anxious about going into the working space because I didn't feel like I was ready enough. And I decided to go to therapy because I was really, really scared. And I advocate this on my channel. Stellenbosch has free therapy for students, and it depends on your level of the need that you need, and they will provide you with however many sessions. But now I'm babbling. But for me, I went there and I was really, really terrified because I wasn't sure if everything that I had learned was,
Yes.
if I was ready, it was just a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
And I think going to those sessions helped me. Okay, you've come this far. There should be something that you've learned, something that you've learned, building up my confidence and recognizing, okay, this is what you've been trained to do, and you actually have the ability, and be more self-aware and reflect on the things that you've learned. So I think now I feel more prepared, more mentally prepared to enter into the workspace. And I also think it's always a matter of consistently learning and consistently being open to being taught, because things will change. Things will look different. I will have different people to deal with. And so I think that's where I am in terms of the workspace.
Individuals from different societies envision a higher education as an institution where you have to project your mind strictly into academics. How do you then get to advise, as a matter of encouragement, that there is life outside academia, and do not to conform yourself within the academic space and try to expose your mind for an easy flow for your life? How do you then get to balance academic and social life?
I think try new things responsibly, of course. Do wholesome things, do things that make you happy, and definitely take care of yourself. There's nothing worse than studying when you're burnt out, tired. There's nothing worse than not feeling your best self while you are supposed to be studying, because academics is number one. You're here to study, but you also should have fun while you do it, and you should be able to balance this with the things that you love. I think also mental health. A lot of people do not prioritize that, and mental health, and it's in the simple things: taking a walk, taking a 5-minute break, lighting a candle, praying, things that really, really stimulate and take you away from the noise. I think coming into university from high school is also very difficult, because you are exposed to many freedoms as well. And how do you handle these? I had the pleasure of having a mentor who she was a bit older than me, and she was able to guide me and just be a bigger sister. I think on my TikTok, that's why I put your Stelli's big sister, because I had one, and not everybody has one, and I was very privileged to have that. I think also in Stellenbosch, one thing that I didn't mention is that I struggled with belonging, especially in a predominantly white environment, coming from a mixed school, coming from a country that is predominantly black. It was a shock for me. It was a culture shock for me, and you don't even realize it, because it's just at your back of your mind. Unconsciously, you just feel like you don't belong. And being able to say, okay, no, I belong here, and allowing yourself to enter into spaces that you feel like you may not belong. That is definitely something that I would advise, and I would encourage people to allow themselves to experience Stellenbosch and to experience university holistically. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presence at EduKnowledge Exchange podcast. It's an honor and gratitude that you came to share the experience of your academic journey. And the EduKnowledge Exchange podcast wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And it strongly believes that it will, in the near future, host a Dr. Rotendo Gora. Thank you very much for your presence.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, our viewers and listeners. May you continue to watch EduKnowledge Exchange podcast to be sharpened on individual superstitious knowledge of education.